be screwed, feel my own adrenaline. Yeah, I do just what I do, and I hope you let me in, yeah.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to Cypherfics. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the third part of Rias Issei, Rias meet dannyphantom. Special note, this fanfic is written in a masterpiece of TheWhiteTitan on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Now then, let us begin this sacred ceremony that will benefit our great race, Rias said as Rias closed her eyes, wishing for her hero to come save her. Rias was about to grab her hand when the big doors suddenly exploded and a black fireball was sent towards Rias, who didn't react fast enough. He was sent towards the altar, knocking down the table and the guy who was supposed to marry them. "What insolence is this?" Rias exclaimed in outrage. "Who dares disrupt this sacred ceremony?" Fireball special. Rias watched as a fireball the shape of Rias's face came flying from the door and into the arrogant Phoenix's face. A flash of recognition and nostalgia on her face. With an indignant expression, Rias roared and pointed at the door. "Guards, seize and execute the intruder." The guards around the room started running towards the door when the walls suddenly explode. They watched as a giant of a man wearing a red muscle shirt and large jeans charged forward, a feral grin on his scarred face, showing something metal on his mouth. He swiped at the guards with his massive hands, breaking their bones. Besides him were two boys with spiky hair. One was pink while the other was blonde. The pink-haired guy was wearing a scale-patterned scarf, white trousers and a black vest, revealing his muscular chest. His fists were covered in fire as he punched the guards. On his right shoulder was the symbol of the Phantom clan. The blonde guy had whisker marks on his face, orange fox ears and 9 tails swirling around him. He was wearing an orange and black jumpsuit under a red cloak with black flames lick the bottom and sleeves. He was wearing a forehead protector and carved on the metal was the Phantom symbol. On the other side of the room, the guards were trapped in blocks of ice by a cute girl with purple hair SCK on a lollipop. She was wearing a purple short skirt, a black, long-sleeved shirt under a white short-sleeved shirt. Next to her was a girl with long, blue hair and pale lilac eyes that made her look blind. She was wearing a bulky, purple jacket and blue breathe. The veins around her eyes were showing as she attacked the guards with palm strikes, knocking them out. Leading them was a red-haired girl wearing a blue skirt, heart cruise armor, and gauntlets. On her hands were 2 swords that she used to cut the guards in front of her. The ceiling exploded and rays of light magic rained down, knocking the guards out. A man wearing a black cloak with the Phantom symbol on back jumped in. He had spiky blue hair and had a red tattoo on his face. Under the cloak was a white shirt and black breathe. Next to him was a white-haired girl wearing a tiger-patterned bikini. She had whiskers, a cat-like nose, tiger ears and tail, and claws on her hands and feet. Beside them was a girl with red hair and orange skin, her eyes glowing green with energy. She was wearing a purple skirt, purple boots that reached her knees, a shirt that only covered her chest, revealing her stomach. She had metal armbands and a chest plate that had a green gem on it. A black dome appeared on the ground and a girl wearing a black leotard and a purple cloak appeared. Next to her was a brown-haired boy wearing black breathe, black, buttoned shirt and a black coat. On his hand was a heavy-looking small gun with Roman 13 on it, pointing his gun at the guards. Next to them was a silver-haired appealing girl wearing a yellow blouse and jeans, an aura of superiority radiating from her. Everyone was confused at what was happening as they watched the group subdue the guards. The older generations were shouting about dishonor, while the young generation were curious about what was happening. "What is the meaning of this?" Rias exclaimed, spittle flying out of his mouth. This was not how his big moment was to go. "What is going on here?" "Haven't you figured it out yet?" a voice said from the door. The group parted as they heard footsteps walking into the room. A small group entered. One was a guy wearing a white shirt under a red jacket with yellow, scale-like patterns and a pair of jeans. His almost squinty eyes had a fierce look on his face, and his spiky hair was black with green highlights. The next person was also a guy, wearing a black suit with red linings, a red scarf and a ninja mask, only showing his eyes. He was holding a sharp sword that was shining in the light. The third one was a petite-looking girl with blonde hair and innocent blue eyes wearing a white dress. The fourth person was a voluptuous woman with black hair and tan skin, wearing a short kimono. She had cat ears, 2 cat tails and amber eyes. But everyone's attention was at the one leading the group. He had shaggy black and white hair so long that it covered his left eye. He was wearing a baggy white shirt, dark blue brief and a dark blue jacket hung on his shoulders like a cape. On the back of the jacket was the symbol of the Phantom clan. He had an aura of confidence and power, but his eyes had a gentle, yet fierce look in them. Though that gentle look disappeared when he stared at Riser's shocked expression. "We're here to crash the wedding, brother," Danny said as he coldly glared at Riser. The tension was so thick that it was practically suffocating. The room was filled with mutters and whispers about the runaway son of the Phantom clan. But Danny didn't pay attention to them. He was more focused on Riser, who still had the stunned look on his face. He then turned his attention to Rias Issei. His eyes softened as he stared at her red hair and her blue-green eyes filled with tears. She looked appealing. "It's been a while, Rias Issei," Danny said as he smiled at her. Rias broke from her frozen state and slowly walked towards Danny before lifting her dress and running towards him. When she was close enough, she jumped and wrapped her arms around his neck, catching him by surprise. "You're really here," Rias said as tears slid down her cheeks. "I've missed you." I missed you too, Rias Issei, Danny stuttered, causing Rias to look at him. He grew taller and more rugged. His hair was messier and longer. He also had a big blush on his face as his mouth moved like a fish needing water. "Hey, what's wrong with Danny?" Natsu asked as he noticed their king stuttering uncontrollably. "Is he allergic to her or something?" "Nah, he's always like that when he's not prepared, Naya," Kuroka said with a giggle. "But it's been a while since I heard him stutter. So cute, Naya." No one moved or made a sound. Suddenly, Natsu, Naruto, Randy, Jake and Train started laughing at Danny, while Mocha, Starfire, Asia and Lysana giggled. Shut up," Danny shouted at them. "I wasn't ready for this, so don't laugh at me." Rias giggled slightly at Danny's embarrassed expression. Danny calmed down and coughed a little. "And anyway, sorry I'm late, Rias Issei," Danny said with a small smile. But you know what they say, the hero always appears at the last moment. Around him were different reactions. Sona, Akino and Shiren were crying happily as the person they chose to be with was back, looking very well. Cyborg was grinning widely as he felt the power radiating from his rival. Avel was crying happily as she saw her favorite big brother return home. Ruvel had a grin on his face as Jazz wiped the tears from her eyes. Lord and Lady Phantom were also happy to see their son back from his dangerous trip. So were Lord and Lady Gremory. Cersech gave a small grin to see Danny back, while a young woman with black hair tied to pigtails wearing a magical girl costume cheered loudly, her large chest bouncing as she did. Yolabuna had a small blush on her face as she saw her king's brother, and the rest Ria's peerage stared at Danny with curious expressions. "You?" Riser exclaimed as he stood up, glaring at Danny. "What are you doing here?" Danny turned to face Riser and his expression turned cold again. He got Rias to let him go as he walked forward. Rias tried to follow him, but Kuroka stopped her, saying that she shouldn't interfere. "I think I just said what I was doing," Danny said with a bored look. "I'm here to crash the wedding." "Crash the wedding?" Riser repeated like he heard wrong. "You, who disappeared from the Phantom clan, dare ruin this great day." "What part of this is great?" Danny said. "All I see is a bstrd trying to ruin my princess life, and I won't allow that. So call the wedding off." Whisper erupted around the halls again at Danny's declaration. Mainly, most of the women and younger devils seemed to be whispering at the drama going in front of them. "Ha ha ha," Riser suddenly laughed. "You want me to call off this wedding? You, a weakling and a failure, order me to do something so ridiculous? Ha ha ha." He stopped laughing when Danny appeared in front of him in a black flash, surprising everyone at his speed. "I'll say it one more time," Danny said as a black aura surrounded him and gave Riser a terrifying look. Call off the wedding, or else. Killing intent flooded the entire room, causing most of the weak devils to faint while the strong ones were giving Danny an interested look. Rias stared at Danny with wide eyes. She always knew that Danny was strong ever since he saved her from that snake monster when they were kids, but she didn't think he was this strong. Riser gave Danny a shocked look as he was surrounded by the Kai that this reject of the Phantom clan was giving. After what felt like an eternity, the Kai disappeared and Danny's expression returned to being cold. "My, it seems we have a little problem here," Sursech said as he walked between the two brothers. "Hello, Danny-kun. You have gotten taller now." "Thanks, Sursech-sama," Danny said as he nodded at Sursech. "I thought I told you to call me Nichin," Sursech whined as he waved his arms childishly. "I see you haven't changed much," Danny said as Grafia came in and grabbed Sursech by the ears. "Og, stop, stop," Sursech exclaimed before Grafia let him go. "Now then, where was I? Oh right, I was going to fix this little problem." "There is nothing to fix, Sursech-sama," Riser said, getting his arrogant side back. He couldn't afford to look weak in front of the strongest devil alive. "My foolish little brother has no right to interfere with this important ceremony." "Actually, I do," Danny said, interrupting Riser from his long-winded speeches. "You see, before I left, I gave Rias my tears." A lot of gasps were heard from the onlookers. "So, by our clan's laws, Rias is my fiancé as well." "That's true," Sursech said with a nod. "I was there when you gave your tears to her. This is very problematic. Fortunately, there is one solution." "What is it?" Danny asked as he turned to Sursech. "A rating game," Sursech said as he looked at Danny's peerage. "Your peerage against Riser's and winner will be Rias' fiancé." "Very well," Riser said with an arrogant tone. "I will show this failure just where he belongs, at the bottom of my heel." "Yap, yap, yap," Danny said while moving his hand. "Do you ever stop talking?" Riser stormed off as his peerage followed him, all except Ravel, who hugged Danny by the waist. "Oniachin," Ravel said as Danny smiled and patted her head. "Well, look at you, Ravel-chan, you've grown," Danny said with a smile. "Ravel," Riser exclaimed as he waited for his bishop to come. "Get over here quickly, and don't associate with that trash." Ravel didn't want to obey Riser, but she was afraid of what he might do. "Go on, Ravel-chan," Danny said gently. "We'll catch up later." Ravel reluctantly nodded before running of the Riser's peerage. Danny then walked towards his peerage and Rias went and hugged Danny's arm. He blushed as he felt her soft BRSD between his arm. "Thank you, Danny-kun," Rias said with a teary smile. "Don't thank me yet," Danny said as the blush lessened a bit as he released himself from Rias' grip. "Thank me after I beat Riser to the ground. Let's go, guys." Danny led his peerage out the room, ignoring the muttering of the people around them. "All right, we finally get to fight," Natsu exclaimed as fire spouted from his mouth. "I'm all fired up." "I wouldn't get my hopes up," Randy said. "From what I heard, Riser's peerage only won through bribery. No matter what methods he used, we will still fight them with all we have," Urza said as she moved her long hair away from her eyes. "Show them no mercy." "I don't plan to show mercy," Gayu said with a large grin. "Try not to kill them, will ya?" Naruto said. "You always take things too far." Rias watched as Danny led his peerage away when her peerage came running towards her. "Are you all right, Buchu?" Issei exclaimed as they gathered around her. "Was that guy Danny Phoenix? What was that feeling he gave earlier? I almost fainted." Ara, Akino said with a smile and blush. "Danny-sama has gotten stronger and more handsome. Yufufufu. I wonder if he got some adult experience." "Be quiet, Akino," Rias exclaimed, looking flustered. Later. Danny and his peerage were standing in a wide platform that was designed like a giant chessboard. In front of them was Riser and his peerage, which was only made of girls. Between them was Grafia, who was acting as their referee. The audience were sitting on balconies while the high-class devil were in special viewing rooms to make them comfortable. Above the platform was a giant screen to show everyone the match. "I must say, you have bad taste since your peerage has a lot of males on it," Sursech said with a sneer before staring at the female members. "But then again, the females aren't bad to look at. How about we make a bet? Loser gives his peerage to the winner. Why would I do that? Danny said with a cold look. My friends aren't objects to be wagered. Are you scared? As expected of you. Like hell he is, Natsu exclaimed. He'll take you on that bet. Seems you can't even control your peerage well if you let them lash out to their superiors like that, Riser said with a sneer. What was that? Natsu said with a growl. Natsu, calm down, Danny said before turning to Riser. You want to play it like that? Fine. Don't cry when I take your peerage away. As he said those words, he couldn't help but notice the hopeful look his peerage had. Well then, let us begin this unofficial rating game, Surtsech announced. The winner will be declared as Ria's fiancé. Let us get this over with, Riser said arrogantly. I have a honeymoon to attend to, and new members to welcome. He gave the girls in Danny's peerage a lustful look. The only thing you'll be attending is a sick bed, Danny said. Let the rating game begin, Surtsech, as the platform released a bright glow before it transformed into a giant forest. Danny and his peerage stared at the big trees, some in awe while others don't really mind. You know what to do, Danny said as he turned to his peerage, who nodded. Let's show them what we're made of. Yeah, they exclaimed before they separated in groups. Danny stayed behind with Asia, who wasn't really much of a fighter. In the special viewing room, the four Mau were watching the fight intently. So how do you think he'll do? Surtsech asked his comrades. I don't know, but seeing how it's him, I'm expecting much, a man with green hair slicked back and a lazy expression said. Danchan's going to do well, the girl said with a smile. Let us wait and see what this black phantom can do, a man in a purple cloak said, his face hidden by the hood. Only time can tell. Rias was sitting with her peerage, as well as Sona and Cyborg. They were currently waiting for the fight to happen. Issei got uncomfortable with the silence, so he decided to ask a question. Buchu, he said, getting Ria's attention. Is Danny-san strong? In a sense, yes, Rias replied. He had the potential to be strong, but he had problems that held him back. Now, he may have become stronger than what I originally thought. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. It opened and a cute girl with black hair and eyes in a maid's outfit entered. Pardon me, Rias-sama, but can we stay here for the duration of the match? The girl said two more people behind her. The first person was a cute girl in a yellow kimono, while the other one was a 15-year-old boy with spiky blonde hair and a scar across his left eyebrow. Siesta-chan, it's been a while, Rias said with a smile. Come in. Who are your new friends? I'm Seiya, just a Nakamata, the girl in the kimono said with a smile, her brown cat ears and tail twitching. And I'm Sting Eucliffe, the blonde boy said with a grin. Her chests are big, Issei exclaimed quietly as she stared at Siesta. Who is she? She's Siesta, Danny-sama's personal maid, Akino answered. He's got a pretty girl as a maid, Issei said as he cried tears of jealousy. No, I won't lose to him. Is he all right? Sting asked as he pointed at Issei. Just ignore him, Shiren said blankly. It's easier that way. Look, Sona said as she pointed at the large screen. A fight's about to happen. Battlefield. Naruto, Natsu, Hinata, and Lisanna met four girls from Riser's peerage in a forest clearing. One was a girl with pale blonde hair tied to a ponytail and wearing a purple skirt and shirt that shaped her well-endowed chest. The other was a girl with red hair and bags under her eyes wearing a red one-piece dress that shows her cleavage. The last ones were twin cat girls wearing sailor uniforms. The one has pink hair while the other one had blue hair. Well, seems we found our enemy. Halai? The pink-haired cat girl commented to her twin. That's right, Nai, Lai said with a grin. We're gonna have lots of fun. So we have to beat up Pinky, Blondie, Blue Eye, and Whitey? The redhead asked, tilting her head to the side. That's right, Flare, the blonde said with a nod. Let's make this quick as Riser-sama ordered. So we're fighting these guys? Natsu said with a grin. I hope they're strong. Let's see and find out, Naruto said as he cracked his knuckles. Can we at least know who our future comrades' names? Lisanna asked politely. If you like, I am Ino Yamanaka, Riser-sama's rook, the blonde replied with a nod. My name is Flare Corona, Whitey, the redhead said as her hair flared around her. I'm a bishop. And we're Nai and Lai, we're pawns. the twins said in unison. Well, I'm Lysana Strauss. I'm Danny Nya's pawn, Lysana said with a smile. I am Hinata Hyuga, Hinata said with a bow. I'm also a pea-pawn. I'm Naruto Namikaze, the strongest rook there is, Databeo, Naruto exclaimed, his 9 tails swirling behind him. What? I'm the strongest rook, Natsu exclaimed angrily before turning to the girls. And I'm Natsu Dragneel, the fire dragon slayer. Now that's out of the way, let's get started, Ino said as she readied herself. Attack. Nai and Lai charged forward, clenching their gloved hands into fists. Promotion, Queen, they shouted before they released a powerful aura. They charged and was about to attack when their hands were suddenly grabbed by something furry. That's it? Naruto asked with a disappointed look. That was a letdown. He noticed something red flashing towards his side and turned to see Flare's hair turning into a wolf-shaped head that was going towards Naruto. Die! Flare exclaimed as the wolf was about to chomp on Naruto when Hinata jumped forward. Juken, Hakisho Kaiten, she exclaimed before she swirled around the air, creating a dome of chakra that destroyed the wolf hair. Thanks for the save, Hinata-chan, Naruto said before he slammed the 2 girls into the ground, knocking them unconscious. No problem, Naruto-kun, Hinata said with a light blush. Riser's 2 pawns has retired, Graphia's voice said before Nai and Lai disappeared in a flash of light. What? Ino exclaimed in shock that 2 of her comrades has been easily defeated. Suddenly, she ducked as a tiger's claw swept where her head was a second ago. She looked up and saw Lysana having tiger ears, a tail, whiskers, and tiger paws on her hands and feet, wearing a tiger-themed bikini. Surprised? Lysana said as her whiskers twitched. I'm a takeover mage that can possess the abilities of animals that I have absorbed. That's not enough to beat me, Ino exclaimed before sending a roundhouse kick at Lysana, who bended backwards to dodge it. Meanwhile, Natsu was dodging the red hair as he moved towards Flare. Stay still, Pinky, Flare shouted as she tried to stab Natsu with her hair. Don't call me Pinky, Natsu exclaimed angrily as he covered his hands with fire. He then swiped at the hair, cutting them. You'll pay for that, Flare said as her hair grew longer again. Hair shower, firefly flame. Red needles flew from her hair and towards Natsu, who used his arms to cover himself. The needles stabbed him, but he looked unharmed by it. What's that supposed to do? Natsu said before the hair needles glowed before exploding. Take that, Pinky, Flare said with a smile as she stared at the pillar of smoke. Suddenly, the smoke parted and Natsu came towards her, not a single scratch on him. Not good enough, Ginger, Natsu said with a grin as Flare stared at him with wide eyes as fire erupted from his fists. Flare couldn't move as Natsu was falling towards her, his spiky hair swaying, the smoke behind him parting and the fire in his hands burning brightly as his vest parted, showing off his muscular body. Flare blushed at the scene in front of her as Natsu readied his attack. Fire Dragon's Iron Fist, Natsu shouted as he punched Flare in the gut, knocking her out and sending her towards the ground. Flare's body was smoking from the attack, but she still had the blush on her face as she disappeared in a flash of light. Riser's bishop has retired. No way, Ino said in shock as she gasped in pain from Lysana's kick. Why are we losing so quickly? That's a simple answer, a voice said behind her. She turned and saw Naruto grinning at her. It's because we're stronger than you. He gave her a quick chop on the back of her neck, knocking her out. He caught her before she fell to the ground before she disappeared. Riser's rook has retired. That was boring, Natsu whined. I want to fight stronger people. Let's go find Geu. Sure, Naruto said as the 2 lead the girls away from the clearing. Better than standing here doing nothing. Viewing room. Rias and her friends, they were shocked on how fast Naruto, Natsu, Hinata, and Lysana defeated Riser's 4 peerage, and without much trouble. Those guys are strong, Gray commented as he crossed his arms, unaware that his was half naked. Course they're strong, Sting said with an excited glint in his eyes. And those girls are hot, Issei exclaimed. Though their chests aren't as big as Butchu or Akino-senpai. He yelped as he felt 2 strong pinches on his back, courtesy from Shiren and Eve. Have you also noticed that Hinata and Lysana didn't use promotion? Elsa said, causing the pawn's eyes to widen. "You're right," Rias said as she stared at the screen. They were fighting equally against two queen-ranking pawns, yet showed little effort. "Siesta-chan, can you tell me more about them?" "Well, Naruto-san and Hinata-chan joined Danny-sama's peerage first after leaving home," Siesta replied. "Naruto is the son of Yasaka Namikaze and Hinata was a member of the main branch in the Hyuga Temple." "No wonder those two are strong," Akino said. "What do you mean, Akino-senpai?" Teresa asked. "Yasaka Namikaze is the leader of the yokai faction and the strongest Kyuubi around, and the Hyuga clan are the guardians of the prison of Kaguya, the mother of yokai," Akino explained. "With such strong BLD in their veins, it's no wonder they are strong." "But what about Natsu-san and Lisana-san?" Rias asked. "They joined after Naruto-san and Hinata-san did," Siesta replied. "Natsu attacked us when he thought that we kidnapped Lisana-san and Danny-sama offered him help." "He said that he's a dragon slayer," Rose said with a curious look. "Is he a hunter, like me?" "Far from it," Sting replied as he grinned, revealing canine teeth. "Dragon slayers are those who were trained by dragons. It's a forgotten magic that gives us the power of dragons." "Are you a dragon slayer, Sting-san?" Siko asked. "Yeah, I am the light dragon slayer," Sting said. That surprised them since light is one of their weakness. "And I'm going to join Natsu-san's peerage once he got one." "Wait, you're not a devil?" Gray asked. "Nope," Sting said. "I and Seiya-san are the only non-devils in the group." Before they could ask more questions, they noticed that another battle was going to happen. Battlefield. In the field, Urza, Jello and Raven were facing against three girls. One was a girl with blue hair that was tied to a ponytail that was scattered all over her head, a white battle dress, black boots and gloves, and a large cleaver sword on her back. The second one was a girl with short blonde hair dressed like a knight, and has a white bandana tied to her head. On her hand was a knight's sword. The last one was a girl dressed like a Miyako and carrying a bow staff, and she had blue hair as well. "We won't let you win," the girl with the giant sword declared as she grabbed her sword and easily moved it with one hand. "Riser-sama has ordered us to defeat his enemies." "Why would we care on what he wants?" Raven said in a deadpan tone. "We're here to win, so hurry up and surrender already." "Blunt as always," Jello said with a chuckle before facing the girls. "But we're not going to lose." "You people seems to be overconfident," the blonde knight commented. "It's not overconfidence if we can back it up," Urza said with her arms crossed. "May we have your names before we start fighting?" "If you want to know, my name is Cirrus, Riser-sama's knight," the girl with the big sword said. "I am Carlamine, also a knight," the blonde said as she held her sword. "And I am Mira, Riser-sama's pawn," the Miyako said as she held her staff. "Now it is common courtesy to introduce yourself next," Cirrus said. "True," Urza said with a nod before her entire body glowed. Everyone stared in shock as Urza's armor changed. Plated armor covered her chest with a metal flower over it, a white skirt that has metal plating on the upper part, gauntlets that passed her elbows, a wing-like headpiece and large metal wings. Her stomach and chest were exposed. "I am Urza Scarlet, Danny's knight, and I look forward to getting to know you once you've joined our peerage." "My name is Jello Fernandez," Jello said as a white aura surrounded him, surprising the devils watching. "I'm his bishop." "Raven, his pawn," Raven replied before a black aura surrounded her. With all that done, Cirrus and Carlamine charged as Mira activated her promotion, turning her into a queen. With the speed of light, they all strike at their opponents, only to hit a barrier made of light. The barrier exploded, blinding the three girls, who suddenly felt weak because of the light magic. "Light magic?" Mira said in a weak tone. "How can a devil use light magic?" "We're full of surprises," Jello said as a shadow appeared behind Mira. She turned and saw a hand created from dark magic going towards her. She tried to dodge, but the hand snatched her up like a doll before throwing her strong on the ground, creating a small crater. With a flash of light, Mira disappeared. Riser's pawn has retired. Cirrus and Carlamine were fighting Urza, trying to gain the upper hand, but the one swordswoman was easily keeping up with them. In fact, she was getting the upper hand as she easily parried their strikes with two swords. "This is the best you got?" Urza said as she pushed them back. She watched as the two knights breathed. If it is, then I will finish this immediately. Cirrus and Carlamine watched as Urza closed her eyes and raised her hand. Suddenly, dozens of swords appeared around her, circling her. "Dance, my blades!" Urza ordered as the swords suddenly flew towards Cirrus and Carlamine, who tried to block it with their swords. They managed to block most of it, but a lot got past their block, giving them great damage. After a minute or two, Cirrus and Carlamine fell, wounds all around their bodies before they disappeared. Riser's knights have retired. "Well, that was a waste of time," Raven said with a bored tone. "I should have brought a book with me." "Let's see if the others are done," Urza said as she switched back to her usual armor. Viewing room. "A devil that can use light magic?" Rias said with a fascinated tone. "He doesn't feel like a fallen angel, so how can he do that?" "And the emo girl looks super sexy," Issei said as he stared at her body that clung to the leotard. "He has so many cute and hot girls. I'm so jealous." "That Urza is very skilled," Siko said, since she has fought against Carlamine and barely won, while the redhead easily defeated 2 of them. "What do you think, Kiba?" She turned to look at her fellow swordsman and was shocked to see him crying. "Urza ni," Kiba whispered. Before they could ask what's wrong, a gasp from Teresa and Elsa got their attention. They turned to the screen and what they saw shocked them. Battlefield. Go, Mocha and Starfire stood at the defeated girls with Mizor and Train behind them. 2 of them were twins that were holding chainsaws, a busty lady with dark skin dressed like a dessert dancer, another lady with red hair dressed in a black tight suit, a brown-skinned girl with brown hair, cat ears and tail, and a girl with black hair tied to buns and wearing a Chinese dress. They all had swirly eyes before they disappeared. Riser's pawns and rook have retired. "That was boring," Gayu said with a frown. "Where's the king? He might give a good fight." "That's what they get for not knowing their place," silver-haired Mocha said haughtily. "Our future friends seem to have been holding back," Starfire commented curiously. "Perhaps they have not been giving it their all." "Whatever the reason, it's over," Mizor said as she SCK on her lollipop. "Let's go find Danny-kun and the others." Viewing room. "Hehe," Siesta chuckled sheepishly. "Seems like they lost control again." Issei didn't even comment on Mocha, Starfire and Mizor. He saw how strong everyone in Danny's peerage and saw how weak he was. He saw his fellows' pawns fight and saw how they defeated Riser's pawns with ease and without using promotion, unlike him who used promotion, his sacred gear, and help from his friends. He clenched his fists tightly. "What am I doing until now?" he thought. "I'm supposed to be Butchu's strongest pawn, but I'm so weak. Yet here are other pawns not even using promotion and are winning easily. I have to become stronger." He wasn't the only one thinking that. Gray, Teresa, Siko, Rose, Kiba and Eve were all thinking about getting stronger, for Rias's sake. "They're doing great," Aquino said. "With the rate they're going, they could win this." "Don't forget," Sona said worriedly. "There are 3 people they need to beat, and they're different from the rest." "Yellabuna, Ravel-chan, and Riser," Rias said calmly. "They're strong, but Danny-kun is stronger." "You sure have a lot of faith in him," Cyborg commented. "Of course I do," Rias said with a smile. "He's my hero, after all." "Ara," Aquino said. "It seems Ravel and Yellabuna are about to engage." Battlefield. "It's been a while, you guys," Ravel greeted as she stood beside Yellabuna. In front of her were Jake, Randy and Kiroka. "I hope you've been doing well." "We're more than well," Jake said. "We're like jacked up, dog. I mean, after all the crazy stick we went through, we are as bruised as can be," Randy said. "Have you taken good care of Oniachin?" Ravel asked Kiroka, ignoring Randy and Jake because of their weird slang. "Actually, he's been the one taking very good care of me, Naya," Kiroka said with a light blush as she cupped her cheeks. Ravel and Yellabuna blushed at what she was implying. "Though he's so stubborn when it comes to baby making. That stubborn version." "Should you really be insulting your king like that?" Ravel said as Kiroka pouted. "Don't worry, Naya," Kiroka assured her. "He's too nice to hurt me. Besides, he's hot when he's giving punishments. Yufufufufu." "Danny likes to punish you?" Jake asked, surprised. "Always knew he was an SDST," Randy said with a nod. "Why else would he make us train like that every day?" Anyway, let's begin fighting, Ravel stammered in embarrassment from hearing embarrassing things about her brother. Sure, Jake said as his hands turned into dragon claws. But don't you dare hold back like the others have been doing. Huh? Yellowbuna said with a surprised look. Do you think we're gullible? Randy said as he pulled out a sword. We know you've been holding back so you guys can lose. Ravel and Yellowbuna didn't say anything and just stood there. Look, we don't care that you guys want to be out of Riser's peerage, not that I blame you, Jake said before his expression turned serious. But it is insulting for us who trained like crazy to be looked down upon. Yeah, so don't even think about holding back, Randy said as the two boys unleashed their kai, or we'll be really angry. So now, let's begin the real fight, Naya, Kuroka said with a serious expression. Very well then, Ravel said as a fiery aura enveloped the two. We shall not hold back anymore, so please get ready. In the DSPLN committee office, Danny was signing some papers and Jake and Randy were playing video games before they heard a girl screaming. What the juice, Randy said before the door opened and a frantic Issei entered their room, looking like a monster was chasing. Something wrong, Issei? Danny asked as Issei calmed down. It's a senpai, Issei said as he breathed for air before grinning. I finally did it, senpai, my own technique. Technique? Jake asked with a raised eyebrow. Was that related to the screaming? Yeah, Issei said with a chuckle. You see. The door opened again and Urza came walking in, carrying a stack of papers. Urza senpai, great timing, Issei said with a grin before turning to Danny, Jake and Randy. This is my new technique. Close destruction wave. With his boosted gear on his right arm, he grabbed Urza's shoulder. Without warning, her uniform was torn to shreds, leaving her naked. Her eyes widened while Danny averted his gaze, unlike Jake and Randy, who were having nosebleeds. Issei then turned back to Danny with a proud grin. See that? He said as Urza covered herself with a blush on her face. I was practicing this move for weeks now. I even asked Asia-chan for help. You asked Asia-chan? Danny repeated, his expression darkening. Issei said, clueless at the coming danger. I even tried it on Buchu, and it worked. On Rias Heim. Though I accidentally hit Eve-chan, Issei said before he looked at Danny and sweated as he noticed the deadly expression on his face. Senpai? I see, Danny said as Urza requipped into her armor, also looking mad. We can't allow that to leave unpunished now, can we? Huh? Issei said as Urza grabbed his shoulder. He slowly looked at her and shivered at the look on her face. www wait. Danny, Urza said with a sweet smile. I recommend we use it on him. It? Issei asked, gulping. What's it? He noticed Randy and Jake paling and giving Issei looks of pity. Sounds like the perfect punishment, Danny said with a sweet smile. Let's go and do it. What's it? Issei cried in terror. Tell me, please. Let's go, Issei-kun, Danny said as he grabbed the poor boy on the back of the shirt and pulled him away with Urza right behind them. It's been nice knowing you, Issei, Jake said as he cried. We'll never forget you, Randy said with a sad nod. We'll tell your friends you fought bravely. No, Issei cried as he struggled to get free. I don't want to die. The door closed, barely blocking Issei's screams of terror. The next day. Hey, what's wrong with Issei? Gray said as he stared at his fellow pawn, who was curled up in a ball, muttering, I'll be a good boy, I'll be a good boy, I'll be a good boy. You don't want to know, everyone in Danny's peerage said in unison. Will he be all right? Rias asked with a worried look. Don't worry, Danny said with a dismissive wave. He'll be back to normal next week. He then placed a hand on Issei's shoulder, causing the boy to tense and look at him with fearful eyes as Danny smiled. So Issei-kun, what did we learn? Don't strip Danny-senpai's friends, Issei said in a robotic tone. Everyone sweated at the look Danny and Urza had on their faces, except Akino and Siko, who wanted to know what they did to Issei. For a week, Issei didn't do anything perverted, which was a new school record. The audience watched as explosions blew over the battlefield. They watched a black blur ran around Yellowbuna, who was firing at it. The blur then ran towards Yellowbuna and kicked her towards a tree. Yellowbuna grunted as she hit the tree before she jumped away. A second later, the blur smashed into the tree, breaking it in half. "You are better than I thought," Yellowbuna commented, looking at Kuroka. "That kick really hurt." "Well, this is kinda personal, Naya," Kuroka said, her cat eyes glinting. "You ambushed my cute little sister. I just want to pay you back." "I see," Yellowbuna commented as she remembered taking out Cheyenne during Ria's raiding game. Her hands then lighted up as she fired at the Nekishu. "Then I best be giving it my all." Meanwhile, Ravel was using her fire to create a wall to block the incoming shuriken and fireballs. She jumped away when Randy tried to cut her with his sword. "Ninja slide attack," Randy said as did a sliding tackle towards Ravel. She flew up into the air, only to fly into Jake, who had dragon claws for hands. Jake swung his claws towards her, but she dodged before swinging her arms towards Jake, who blocked it with his claws. Jake was surprised on how fast Ravel could keep up with his attacks. She was blocking and dodging his swipes before attacking him. "Ninja jump kick," a voice exclaimed behind her. She felt herself getting kicked on the back before she plummeted to the ground. She groaned before she saw Jake coming towards her, intending to strike her with his claws. She fired a fireball at Jake, stopping him from knocking her out. She quickly stood up and saw Randy charging at her. "Ninja sword slash," he shouted as he started SWNGNG his sword, causing her to duck and dodge. Ninja surprise kick. She expected a kick, but got a punch instead. She was thrown a few feet before she regained her balance. "That wasn't a kick," she complained in annoyance. "That's the surprise," Randy said. "Now, ninja multiple ring toss." He threw 20 ninja rings towards Ravel, who created a wall of fire to protect herself. Suddenly, a red dragon claw went through the wall, surprising her. She was thrown a few feet before she fell on her butt, groaning a bit. "Gotta say, little lady, you're pretty good," Jake said to Ravel, who was standing up. "But we didn't waste all those years goofing around." "Half of them, but not all of them," Randy said as he raised his sword. "So wanna keep dancing?" Ravel's reply was her wings growing bigger. She stared at the two boys before she charged, her body covered in fire. Meanwhile, Rias Peerage watched the fight with some awe. Even Issei as he saw how fast and fluid Jake and Randy moved. "Hang on," Grace suddenly said. "That Kuroka girl said something about Yellowbuna taking out her little sister. Who was she talking about?" "It's me," Cheyenne said quietly, surprising most of Rias Peerage. "You have a sister, Cheyenne-chan?" Teresa asked, causing Cheyenne to nod. "But why aren't you with her in that peerage?" "Because of our species," Cheyenne replied. "We are a rare species within a rare race. Danny-kun couldn't keep the both of us, since it would cause trouble for him, so he gave me to Buchu." "Yeah," Rias said with a smile, remembering how Danny introduced the small, shy girl to her. "I was really happy when he introduced her to me. I got a new little sister." Cheyenne smiled at that. Thanks to Danny, she had a new family, one that she could trust. "So that sexy girl is your sister?" Issei said as she looked at Kuroka before at Cheyenne. He then began to wonder what Cheyenne would look like when she's older. He started giggling perversely. Cheyenne gave Issei an annoyed look before kicking him in the shin. Issei yelped in pain from Cheyenne's super strength kick, hoping on one foot. "So, who's the guy with the dragon claws?" Rose asked with interest as Issei fell to the floor. "Jake Long," Rias replied. "He's one of Danny-kun's earliest pieces. He's part of a dragon clan that protects the magic creatures from hunters." "I see," Rose said as she continued watching the fight. Back in the battlefield, Kuroka and Yellowbuna were in close combat, with Kuroka having the upper hand. She was faster and stronger than Yellowbuna, who was only strong in magic. Yellowbuna tried to fire at Kuroka, but the Nekomata disappeared and reappeared behind her, kicking her to the ground. Yellowbuna stared at Kuroka while breathed for air. She was wondering why Kuroka was stronger than her, even though they were both queens. "I see Riser didn't even bother training you how to fight, Naya," Kuroka commented. "You're not even near the queen's true potential." "True potential?" Yellowbuna said with a confused expression. "The evil pieces are very complex, but they have traits based on skill, Naya," Kuroka explained. "As a queen, we have the traits of bishop, rook and knight. Because of that, we had to train on magic, strength and speed. But seeing how you fight, you've only been focused on the magic part." Yolabuna couldn't find a reason to disagree. There were 3 reasons why Riser was attracted to her: her beauty, her body, and her skills in magic. Since she was already that good, he didn't bother to train her or his peerage on how to fight. Just depend on their natural skills. No wonder you were so confident, Yolabuna said with a small smile as she kneeled to the ground. I look forward to being your comrade. In a flash of light, Yolabuna disappeared. Riser's queen has surrendered. Ravel looked to where Yolabuna was before looking at her remaining opponents. She figured that she could take on 3 of them when the rest of Danny's peerage appeared. Looks like we missed the action, Jello commented, seeing that Ravel was alone. We missed all the fun, Natsu complained. Ravel looked at the very strong-looking people in front of her. She sighed, knowing she can't take them all on herself. Just as she was about to surrender, everyone tensed. Randy and Naruto suddenly jumped up into the air. Ninja Hydro Hand, Randy exclaimed as he fired a giant hand made of water. Futen, Dedopa, Naruto exclaimed as he finished doing the seals and released a strong torrent of wind from his mouth. The 2 attacks combined just before a giant fireball came towards them. There was a big explosion, covering the entire area in black smoke. When the smoke cleared, everyone watched Riser descend towards them, his wings burning brightly behind him. Rias and her peerage watched worriedly as Riser finally appeared. He might be a BSTRD, but he was a strong BSTRD. I must say, I'm mildly impressed, Riser said with a sneer. I didn't think you would defeat my servants. But then again, they were losing on purpose. He gave Ravel a glare that promised pain. The young girl glared back, though it was half-hearted. Well, maybe if you weren't such a shitty king, they wouldn't want to backstab you, Natsu spat, earning a glare from Riser. Trash like you have no right to talk to me, Riser said. Before Natsu could react, Riser fired at him, covering the pink-haired boy with fire. Trash should just be burned away. Ravel watched in horror as Natsu was covered in fire, thinking that he was badly burned. But then she noticed how calm Natsu's comrades were. That's what happens when trash talk to their betters, Riser said with a sneer before he heard something from the fire. Confused, he looked at the fire until he saw a shadow inside it. His eyes widened when he saw Natsu, completely unharmed, eating his fire. I am possible. Key, Natsu said as he finished the flames, looking sick. You call these flames? They taste like SHT. You dare insult my power, Riser exclaimed in anger, his wings growing bigger. I am your superior, so treat me with the respect I deserve. Ha, Kuroka said with a snort. The only respect I have for you is respect for a dead dog. Riser turned to Kuroka and his look of anger was replaced with lust. Now Kuroka-chan, you don't really mean that, he said. It's a shame my foolish brother wouldn't trade you. We could have had a good time. Like you could ever please me, Kuroka said with disgust. Why couldn't I, Riser said, still trying to woo Kuroka. I am much better than the Phantom Reject. Danny-kun is better than you in everything, Kuroka said. And I do mean everything. Yufufufu. The girls blushed at what Kuroka was implying and Riser just looked annoyed. It appears I'll just have to show you, Riser said as a fireball appeared on his hand. Just let me get rid of these trash, and I'll show you ladies that I'm just the guy you need. Before he could attack, a giant pillar of black flames appeared in front of them. When the flames dispersed, they saw Danny facing Riser, his arms crossed. Asia was behind Danny, peeking over his shoulder. You guys did a good job, Danny said as he turned to his friends and grinned. Go and take a breather. I'll handle this one. He walked forward and looked at Riser, who just sneered at him like he was a piece of dirt on his fancy shoes. But I want to fight him, Natsu exclaimed, fire coming out of his mouth. Me too, Gayu said with a feral grin. He looks like someone who can give a fight. Look, this is something I need to do alone, Danny said, his expression turning serious. And if you have a problem with that, you can fight me later. Natsu and Gayu looked at Danny before backing down. Raven then teleported them away as Danny walked towards Riser, glaring coldly at the blonde. The 2 brothers stared at each other before Riser spoke. Now brother, how about you do the smart thing for once and give up, Riser said arrogantly. And miss giving you the humiliation of a lifetime? Danny said with a wicked grin. No thanks. You always were very stubborn, Riser said with a sigh. Guess I'll just have to teach you again. And this time, Ruvel won't save yo. He was cut off when an elbow came flying towards him, hitting his mouth and sending him flying. A few teeth came out of his mouth as he landed strong on the ground. He glared at Danny as his mouth healed itself. You talk too much, Danny said as he cracked his knuckles. Lucky shot, Riser growled as he stood up. But you won't caught me off guard. A black blur and a kick in the jaw sent Riser to the sky. He used his wings to stop himself and snarled at Danny, who was giving a smirk. Like that? Danny asked with a smirk. I will burn you, Riser exclaimed angrily as he fired at Danny, who just ran past the attacks. Is that the best you can do? Danny mocked as he dodged the fire attacks. Come on, I fought an old lady with better aim. Riser snarled and charged. He aimed a punch at Danny, who easily dodged it. Riser kept throwing punch after punch, but Danny had no problem dodging. In fact, he had his hands behind him, a sign that he was mocking Riser. The blonde angrily swung his arms, releasing flames with every swing, but kept missing. Danny just moved around him. Stand still, Riser demanded as he leapt towards Danny, who just ducked. Riser turned around, but found Danny nowhere. Unknown to him, Danny was right behind him, moving the same way Riser was so he couldn't be seen. He slapped the back of Riser's head, causing the blonde to growl. He spun around, unleashing a torrent of fire to hit Danny, but the younger phantom just kept behind him. Danny then kicked Riser's butt, sending him sprawling to the ground face first. How's the ground tasting? Danny asked. Suddenly, he jumped away when Riser unleashed a large amount of flames, spreading through the area. His wings appeared and took him to the skies as Riser stood up from the flames, glaring angrily at Danny. He looks PSS, Gray commented as he watched Riser's flames surround the area, burning the trees and grass. He then turned to Rias. Hope your knight in shining armor can beat him. Danny Kun's not a knight, Rias said as she watched Danny fly above the flames, marveling at his black flamed wings. He's a king? Aw, is my superior having a temper tantrum? Danny mocked as he watched flames grew bigger. Who knew you were such a kid? Shut it, you coward, Riser exclaimed. You're just afraid of my flames can do to your puny embers. Then how about we see who has the stronger flames? Danny said as he lifted his right arm, engulfing it with black flames. I'll gladly show you, Riser exclaimed as the flames around the area formed around Riser. Burn from my superior flames. Danny flew down towards Riser, raising his right fist. Riser just raised his right fist, the flames gathering around it. When Danny got close enough, the two brothers punched, their fists and flames meeting head-on. There was a big explosion that shook the entire area, covering it with smoke. When the smoke thinned down, they saw Riser's arm blasted off by Danny's fist, which was embedded on his face. Riser was thrown towards a boulder and 3 trees. I see, Sona suddenly said, getting her fellow watcher's attention. He concentrated his flames to break through Riser's giant fire attack, which was too spread out. I have to say, Danny said as he walked towards Riser, I'm kinda disappointed. I was expecting a big fight from you, but instead, I'm wiping the floor with your butt, Riser. He dodged when a fireball was thrown towards him by Riser, who looked completely PSS off. You call that aiming? I've seen a bird aim better than you, Danny said, dodging another fireball. I've never seen Danny Kun like this before, Rias said as Danny continued making fun of Riser. I know he never gets along with Riser, but this just doesn't seem him. Danny Sama's trying to make Riser angry, Siesta explained. Make him angry, Issei asked, confused. Isn't that a bad thing? Sometimes, no, Siesta said, shaking her head. Danny Sama used this tactic to make his opponents slip and make a mistake. He's done this plenty of times. I see, Rias said in understanding. The angrier he makes Riser, the more chances he has of winning. But that's a really risky move, Sona said, pushing her glasses up. Devils use their emotions to increase their power. If he makes Riser too angry, it might backfire. He's counting on it, Siesta said with a nod, confusing the others in the room. Whoa, I actually felt that one, Danny said, dodging the 10th fireball. Your aim's still SCK though. He suddenly noticed Riser grinning. Without warning, the ground where the fireball hit exploded. Danny didn't move, he just stood there as the explosion engulfed him. "Ha ha ha ha," Riser exclaimed as he stared at the fiery inferno in front of him. "I tried to warn you, brother. You could have walked away without being hurt, instead you choose to be turned to ashes. Don't worry, though, I'll be sure to take care of your peerage, especially the girls." Suddenly, the fire was blown away by a spinning black dome. He was surprised when he saw the dome, which slowly disappeared, revealing an unharmed Danny. "What?" he exclaimed in shock as his attack was blown away. "That move just now," Akino commented, remembering a move like that before. "It's the same one Hinata-san used." "Surprised, Riser?" Danny said with a smirk as he raised his arms. "Well, there's more where that came from. Phantom fireflies." At the tip of his fingers, hundreds of small fireball floated all over Riser. They looked like fireflies floating in the air. "What is this supposed to do? Bore me death?" Riser mocked. Danny just smirked when he closed his hands. Without warning, the fireflies exploded, causing Riser to scream in pain as he felt the explosions all over his body. "Hey, that looks familiar," Issei commented. "It's like Ace's technique from One Piece," Rias exclaimed, stars in her eyes. That surprised everyone except those who knew her long. "That's so cool." "Buchu," Issei said, not used to seeing Rias so excited. "Rias, your otaku side is showing," Sona commented, causing Rias to calm down, a blush on her face. "Buchu's an otaku," Issei, Kiba, Rose, Teresa, Eve, Siko and Elsa thought, staring at their king. The way she acted in school and the things she has in the clubroom, they would have never guessed that she was into manga and anime. "You think a little light show is enough to beat me?" Riser exclaimed as his injuries disappeared. "Nope. Just PSS you off," Danny said with a grin. Riser roared and fired a large torrent of very hot fire towards Danny, who just stood there, his right hand raised. Phantom Flame Shield. A giant transparent shield made of black fire appeared in front of Danny, easily blocking the torrent of fire. Riser stared at the shield in shock. "What's the matter, Riser? Too hot to handle?" "That was from Flame of Rekka," Rias exclaimed again, the stars back in her eyes. Sona gave her a deadpan look. Riser growled and was about to attack again when Danny disappeared in a gust of wind. "What?" he exclaimed as a black blur started running around him so fast that he was creating a tornado. Riser started floating against his will. He tried to move, but it felt like the wind was restraining him. "What is this?" "Phantom Dancing Wind Devil," Danny exclaimed as he gave Riser a wind-powered heel kick to the ground, creating a big crater. BLD came out of Riser's mouth as his body healed itself. Riser was beyond mad. This failure was making a fool out of him. He was supposed to be enjoying his honeymoon, turning Rias into one of his women, but instead, he was being humiliated. "I will burn even your ashes," Riser exclaimed as he fired his attack. Supernova Storm. The small sun was thrown towards Danny before it exploded, releasing such a powerful explosion that the entire building shook. "Whoa," Issei said as he and everyone stared at the explosion with wide eyes. "There's no way Danny-san is still alive." "Danny-kun," Rias said, looking worried. Riser stood at the giant inferno all over him. He looked around the place with a wild look in his eyes, looking very demented. "Ha ha ha ha, you see, brother," he exclaimed insanely. "This is what happens when you face a true phantom." "I have to admit," a voice said in front of Riser, stopping his laughter. "That did sting a little." Riser's expression turned into disbelief as the flames parted away, revealing Danny, whose jacket and shirt was burned, revealing his scarred, muscular body. Years of training was shown to the audience by the number of scars and muscle Danny had. The black flames flickered around him, protecting him from the fire. Everyone was shocked. They have never seen a phantom with a scar before. This just showed them how hellish the trip Danny took. "Danny-kun," Rias whispered with a blush as she looked on how rugged her childhood friend was. She also noticed the scars all over his body. A large scar was on his back, several burn marks on his left chest, a gunshot on his left kidney, 3 slash marks on his right chest. "Ara, Ara," Akino said with a deep red face, staring at Danny hungrily. "Danny-sama is very sexy. Yufufufu." Sona and Cheyenne had blushes on their faces, staring at Danny through their fingers. So was Elsa. Siko and Siesta were doing what Aquino is doing, staring at Danny hungrily. Diamenet, Issei cried in his mind. He's making so many girls fall in love with him. I need to start working out. How? Riser asked as he backed away from Danny. How are you still alive? I put all my anger into that attack. You shouldn't even be ashes now. It's because I absorbed your anger, Danny said as a pair of black, fingerless gloves appeared on his hands. It was made with black LTHR, metal plating on the knuckles and edges, and a triangle-shaped gem on the back of the hand. Your anger, your wrath gave me all the energy I need. That can't be possible, Riser exclaimed. I never heard of something like absorbing anger. That's because I'm a very special case, Danny said as his gloves glowed brightly, releasing a combination of holy and dark energies. Inside me is something that was once created by God and has been corrupted. Inside me is the cursed gear, the Sin Eater. The audience were confused. They never heard of a cursed gear before. So he was right, Cersetches said softly. Acknowledge has reawakened. The Sin Eater, a voice said in Issei's head. After all these years, he has finally returned. What do you mean, D-Drag? Issei asked the dragon living inside him. Do you know this Sin Eater? Let's just say that if it wasn't for that unfortunate day, the Sin Eater would be the strongest Longinus today, D-Drag replied, making Issei's eyes widen. Keep watching, kid. This is something you shouldn't miss. Behind Danny, Riser could see a giant beast covered in black scales with strange markings over his body. It has big wings and giant claws, sharp teeth and white eyes that could see in his soul. With the Sin Eater, I can absorb the 7 sins and use it to become powerful, Danny said as the gloves glowed brighter. And now, I'm going to end this fight. Riser stumbled back and tripped on something, falling on his butt. He tried to crawl away, but he was too scared to do anything. Wait, Riser exclaimed, trying to stop Danny from hurting him. Don't you see what you're doing, brother? This is a great chance for our magnificent race to live on. If you ruin this wedding, you'll be dooming our race to extinction. You, who have always been a bother, want to ruin this chance. Danny just stared coldly at Riser, his gloves still glowing brightly. Is that why you always tormented me? Danny asked suddenly, anger appearing in his eyes. Why you always belittle me and insult me and every chance you got? I don't care about what happens to our race. I don't care about what these strangers need. I only care one thing, to keep the vow I made. Behind him, his wings suddenly grew, becoming bigger and hotter. Even the audience, who were just watching the fight through the screen, was feeling the heat. I made a vow to protect Ria's happiness. I swore on the flames on my wings that I will protect her, and you almost destroyed that happiness, he exclaimed angrily. I will never forgive you for that, Riser. He crossed his arms and his wings started swirling around him. The black flames soon started shaping into a phoenix's head, much to everyone's shock and awe. The phoenix's appearance slowly shifted into more reptilian-like, the beak turning into a scaly snout and horns appearing on its feathery head. Danny cupped his hands together and a small ball of dark energy formed. Phantom black flames, Phoenix Dragon's mighty roar. The head of the dragon opened its maw and roared just as Danny fired the black energy, releasing a torrent of concentrated fire towards Riser, who could just sit there in fear. The attack hit his body before exploding, destroying Riser's entire body. Every devil in the crowd stared at the attack with awe and shock. They have never seen a young devil release such a powerful attack before. Riser released a silent scream of pain as he laid on the floor, waiting for his body to recover. He heard footsteps and saw Danny staring at him with a blank expression. You think this is over? Riser spat, feeling his injuries gone. I will not give up. No matter what you throw at me, I will still recover. You're right, Danny said as he crouched beside Riser, looking straight into his eyes. Physical attacks are things you can recover from. But what about mental attacks? What? I will attack your mind, Danny said as he started lifting his bangs. That way, you will never hurt Rias or my friends ever again. Riser just looked, seeing the big scar on his face where his left eye should be. When he opened his eye, Riser saw a red eye with 3 tomos around the pupil. Riser watched as the tomos spun around the pupil before it merged, turning into a pinwheel-shaped pupil. "What is that?" Rias asked, seeing Danny's left eye. She never saw an eye like that before. In one of the highest viewing boxes, a man with gray hair with his lower face covered by a mask and his left eye covered by headband stared at the screen with a wide eye. "Well, look at that, Kakashi," a female voice exclaimed beside him. "I guess you have a copycat copying the copycat." "Very funny, Enko-chan," Kakashi said in a deadpan, still looking at the screen. "That Sharingan, it belonged to Shisui." Riser suddenly felt the air around become cold and the sky turned red. In fact, everything turned red, like they were in a drawing in red paper. He looked at his body and saw that his clothes were white while his skin was white. "What is this place?" he demanded as Danny appeared in front of him, fully clothed. His clothes were inverted from black to white, so was his hair. "Welcome to my personal world, Tsukuyomi," Danny replied as he spread his arms and the entire background changed. The skies turned into swirls, large islands were floating around them, and there were a lot of doors floating in the air. "In here, I control everything. In here, I am God." Riser winced when Danny said God. Danny noticed that and scoffed. "It's just a name, it doesn't hurt that much," Danny said as he walked towards Riser, pulling a sword from the ground. "Release me, weakling," Riser demanded as he tried to break free. He suddenly noticed something. "My flames? What happened to my flames?" "I control this world, so I make the rules," Danny said, his left eye's pupil spinning rapidly. "So first rule, no phantom abilities, which means no fire, wind, or healing abilities." "You think I'll believe such a stupid lie?" Riser demanded. Danny just looked at him before he stabbed Riser's arm. He pulled the sword out and watched as blood oozed out the wound. Riser stared at the wound in shock before he screamed in pain. He never felt a wound like this. The only pain he felt was when sparring Ruvel. "Do you believe me now?" Danny said as he snapped his fingers. The wound suddenly disappeared. "Now then, what should I do with you?" He looked at Riser, who was glaring hatefully at him. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 4. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author TheWhiteTitan on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.